What if I told you that this Pittsburgh Steelers team might actually be able to win a Super Bowl? And you saw why last night on Sunday Night Football against one of the better defenses in the NFL in the New York Jets. We all know that Mike Tomlin is great, and last night he showed you exactly why he has the highest winning percentage in Steelers history. Now let me tell you why this is not just some hot take without any legs. And there are two reasons to believe that what you saw last night is not a fluke. First, back when Russell Wilson signed, I was one of the first to tell you how the Arthur Smith hiring coupled with Russell Wilson gave this team a legitimate chance to compete because of how we have seen Arthur Smith be somewhat of an underrated quarterback whisperer and reviving the careers of guys like Ryan Tannehill, who took Tennessee on a deep playoff run when many in the NFL had given up on him. And Russell Wilson just needs to be the cherry on top. We know the formula for him is that if you give him a really smart, athletic, and talented defense, that he can take it all the way to the Super Bowl. No, I'm not comparing him to that same guy, but what you need is to keep the team in it, not make stupid turnovers, and understand where to go with the ball and when, and to also open up the X factor of George Pickens with those moon balls that I think is going to surprise a lot of people. Don't let what Arthur Smith failed to do in Atlanta confuse for being an incredible offensive coordinator. And secondly, how many coaches would have the confidence to start an aging quarterback after their backup went 4-2 and looked like a completely different and more developed player than he did in Chicago and Justin Fields? He jokingly said, quote, "This is why I'm well compensated." And Mike Tomlin deserves to talk his shit a little bit after making this decision. On the broadcast, in the production meeting, Mike Tomlin said, quote, "Who can I win a Super Bowl with?" And that's how you know Mike Tomlin is on a totally different time than the rest of the NFL. And what I mean by that is maybe the rest of us haven't even put them in the Super Bowl conversation, but that is what guides each and every one of his decisions, as it should. And there seems to be nobody better at blocking the outside noise than Tomlin. There was not a single player on the Pittsburgh Steelers that thought that they were out of Super Bowl contention, and Tomlin instills a confidence with questionable teams, even in the past when there's been no chance. Watching Russell last night shows you the value of situational football and the way that the playbook and overall team trajectory opens up when you can see the field systematically move the pocket and make almost every type of throw. As well as Justin Fields played, it was obvious that he left quite a bit of throws on the table because he just has a fastball. If you're gonna try to win a Super Bowl, you're gonna have to mix it up against the likes of the Baltimore Ravens, Chiefs, and Bills defenses, and there is still a ton of value in pocket quarterbacks. And we haven't even talked about the defense yet. There are very few holes on this team, top to bottom, and with a defense flying around the way that the Steelers were last night with multiple leaders. We certainly don't talk about the Minkah Fitzpatrick acquiring nearly as much as we should. And he's such a better fit in Pittsburgh than he ever was in Miami in terms of culture. Football teams that play with reckless abandon and don't know what they don't know is a beautiful thing, especially with how weak the AFC is. And that's what you saw last night, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Tomlin has instilled an attitude even in the weaker parts of the team, like the offensive line, where they're running the ball down your throat just to make a point and prove that they can. You know that football, for me in particular, is not just about X's and O's. For Wilson to only need 264 passing yards and 3 total touchdowns tells you that this defense and special teams carry them against the class of the league and division. And that is why I have been so big on these intangible moves that they have made in the offseason to acquire the right guys. Because when you have the right guy at the top, you are seeing a totally different offense and dynamic. Now let's talk about the other team that was on the field last night on Sunday Night Football. If you're here, you're probably a pretty big football fan, or like my mom or something. And that tells me that you know that acquiring Davante Adams wasn't gonna solve basically anything for this football team. The idea was probably that they're gonna go all in and give Aaron Rodgers absolutely everything that he wants because they've already come this far. And listen, that's one way to do it. And the idea was also probably that they were going to inject some type of energy and enthusiasm in the building, which is another reason you fire your coach after game 5 in hopes that the interim coach, who in this case isn't very rah-rah, is going to inspire the team to be much different than they already are. Well, it's a little concerning that we didn't see that last night with the Jets. And in fairness, I'm actually not going to be coming directly for Aaron Rodgers in the way that I normally do. The Jets have much bigger problems than Aaron Rodgers after watching this game. Let's just start with the fact that if you pan to the sidelines on the field, literally nobody on that team looks happy. They look absolutely miserable. And that is really not what you want to see from a team in week 7 who just acquired potentially the best wide receiver in the NFL. The entire offense is predicated on Breece Hall, who is just a single man. He's not the savior, and it is not sustainable. He is the only part of that offense that consistently works regardless of where they play and who they play against. There is such a lack of continuity and rhythm with that offense. They seemingly can't get anything going in a consistent manner. They almost can't even put together a full drive without multiple penalties, multiple shots of Aaron Rodgers huffing and puffing. And although Rodgers has looked slightly better, there is a reason that I am so critical of this organization. And it is because when you create a culture and you create a system in the way that the Jets have operated for 24 years at this point, you can ruin good players' careers. On the broadcast, they talked about how Davante Adams, he's Garrett Wilson as a gold jacket guy. And that is such an incredible thing to hear for a young guy in this league coming from someone like Davante, who's so respected. However, you can see the way that the Jets situation has completely stripped the confidence of Garrett Wilson to the point where he not only has a bad case of the drops, but for the first time, you see him walking around sulking as if he just doesn't have opportunity to succeed and thrive there. And there's just no joke about what this type of environment can do to a young and promising player, which is why I don't play around with it in the slightest. Think about it. If Sam Darnold didn't get his second, third, or fourth chance with now the Vikings to go and show his real talent, imagine what would have happened if he would have just only had the opportunity at the Jets. This organization ruins good guys. And so I think although you see Aaron Rodgers steadily improving, obviously we know the drops hinder a ton of momentum. But with Aaron, he's just too sloppy for me. He's not detailed. And part of the reason you can expect that is because you have a first-time play caller, you've got a defensive interim head coach who is not tight on the details, who's not sweating the small stuff, which is what you need to be good in this league. And Aaron, on a lot of the plays last night, just looks sloppy as hell. With this type of talent drop off, you can't really afford not to be locked in and tight at every single step of the way. And this is what happens when you have that type of ego and a lack of self-awareness. You think just go chuck the ball to any player at any arm angle at any time with loose footwork and loose arm angles. And when you have that type of decline, which is understandable at age 40 something, it's just not gonna look the way that it used to look. And so I wonder where the belief and the faith is going to come from with this team. I have major concerns, as I've had this entire time. I've always been critical about the Davante Adams trade, never understood how it made any football sense. And lastly, you now see Davante on the sidelines looking upset, questioning life. Now he comes out this morning and says that the team is just too talented for this type of performance. And I guess that's one way to look at it. But this stuff starts all the way at the owner's suite and trickles down. Talent without hard work and discipline is really not really something that translates. And we see that. The Jets better start to get tight. They better start to get locked in if they want that talent to mean anything. Because as of right now, things just seem to be declining and declining. And really, I'm not seeing a ton of improvement, except for I am seeing Aaron get the ball out with slight improvement. But talent doesn't mean shit if you don't have process and systems and leadership and belief in the building. As of right now, the Jets just seem like a bunch of dudes who are there to cash their checks and get to Cabo after week 17. Appreciate you stopping by. I've got a week 7 breakdown coming in the next couple of days, and my Tampa Bay Buccaneers are taking on the Ravens tonight on Monday Night Football. So I'm extremely excited about that, and probably will put out a pretty emotional episode regardless if we win or lose. Sometimes when we lose, I just go into the bedroom and want to cry and don't really want to record, but we shall see. I have some hope. Let's hope the Bucs can stay healthy. Thanks for tuning in on this one. I look forward to seeing you shortly. If you want to be notified when I put out a new video, especially if you're a returning Buccaneer fan and want to see what happens later tonight after the Ravens game, hit the notification bell to subscribe, because we are doing this all season long and the off season. Can't wait to stay connected. I will see you next time.